All right, so it was mentally stimulating, and let's kind of like switch the gears and start from the easy stuff. When we go to your link, Twitter, there's NGIF.
Yes.
What is that?
There's a natural general intelligence.
Natural general.
Yeah, I want to accelerate what we can do with our brains.
Interesting. What does it mean?
It means that just making some giant, EAC supercomputer that does everything for you is not very interesting to me. I think we should be building as much AI as we can in a way where it's making us smarter instead of just, doing it all for us.
Okay, so real sci-fi.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Speaking about sci-fi, what's your favorite sci-fi books?
Sci-fi books. One of my favorites is Accelerator.
You fell?
Have you heard of that?
No.
It's by this author, Charles Stross. I read it like 15 years ago, and it kind of goes, it's like in sort of three novellas blended together, or joined together. The first one's kind of like pre-singularity, the second one's like during the singularity, and the third one's post-singularity. And I love this book, and I reached out to the author and I said, look, I love this book. There's some sort of themes in it that are a bit challenging for kids. Could we look at maybe doing a slightly different version? They got back to me and said, I hate this book. I wish I never read it.
All it is. That's a good one. So that's where all the crazy ideas come from.
A lot of them are homegrown.
All right, I'll trust you on that one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, obviously, you're providing some amazing research work there with the compute grants and enabling this at scale. Literally, the companies from all over the world, from different research institutions. Why so much focus on AI specifically right now? I mean, besides the hype, But what do you think? Like, why is your focus on AI specifically?
I think it's like the new frontier of discovery. We keep making advances there. It feels like a lot of other areas have kind of stalled out a little bit, and it seems like that's where there's a fresh area to actually keep advancing, and the ability for it to the sort of step change in terms of what you're able to do because of it seems more interesting than a lot of other technologies at the moment.
Okay, I see. So what do you think besides energy? The energy part, we got it. It's going to be solved.
Dyson Spheres.
Yeah, we have the solution. We just have to make the work. Tuesday it is, tomorrow we'll start working. But what other limitations do you see that the AI industry is facing right now? Obviously, you've been around for a while in terms of conquering Silicon Valley, seeing different waves of hype, I guess. What do you see here as kind of a veteran of Silicon Valley? And what are the limitations that are stomping us on this amazing potential of AI?
I think just not enough people understands how it actually works enough. I think there's a lot of people, a few people squirrel away in labs building like amazing stuff. There's a whole bunch of people kind of, using some of the things that come out of those labs. And then there's the actual ability, like if you think for each one, and maybe some of you are in these labs right now, but if you're not, what does it feel like, the idea that you would actually go and be building one of the frontier models? It feels like quite a long distance away from where you are now. And part of what we're doing with the product is trying to close that distance significantly. So, I don't know how, stuff works at cluster scale. Great. Get on, right? You can own a cluster job for $10 on the platform. You can get on and actually see how this stuff works. And I think that, the other big obstruction, I just saw a post on Twitter today that said when Joaquin Phoenix was preparing for his role as the Joker, he needed to develop a true state of psychosis. So in order to do that, he installed CUDA drivers on Linux. And that's pretty much what it feels like. And so there's a lot of rough edges to a lot of this technology. And we want to smooth all that out. So people who actually want to engage with the science, want to engage with how these things work, aren't just walking through this just absolute, expensive, painful problem.
Painful it is. And you bring up a very interesting point that when you're doing AI research right now, you're kind of looking up to all these giants, OpenAIs, Anthropics, and you really feel small, like in terms of even your ability to secure compute. Right now, it's getting a little bit better, but 6 months ago, even if you had credits from like Google or Amazon, the GPU allocation was pretty much not there. So, for the early stage startups that are trying to do some of these innovative things, it's becoming really challenging to basically like create those MVPs of any sort. We take the previous era of cloud, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when we had the first kind of like enablement wave, where we could easily just like piece things together and ship yet another, new mobile app, and that was exciting, that was viable. You could get it out there, you could get some users, you could get some funding, and boom, it works, right? It works for that wave of VC funding and venture capital startups. But now you can't really, push the limit on the actual AI side. All you can do is just like build GPT-4 wrappers, right? At least that's what the VCs say these days. But what's your thoughts?
I think in the frontier language model space, that's perhaps where it's most challenging. But there's a lot of other AI work going on that's not that, where you can build and train models. And things like vision, medical imaging, tool use. There's pretty much everything other than language is something where you can apply a model that is within the budget of even a modestly funded startup to go and have a crack at. On the GPU availability front, we got you, right? We got plenty, and you can always find GPUs on our platform. I think what I'm anticipating, I feel like it's quite overdue at this point, is some kind of breakthrough on the transformer approach. It really feels like the transformer, just shoving more parameters and more GPUs at the transformer and saying, well, if we just get the context window, that, I think there's something that's more elegant available, which is why we're funding, research in these areas. I think there will be a shift there. And I think that, if you want to work on one of those ideas and see if there's actually a better way to do language than just a bigger and bigger transformer, then I think we will see a breakthrough there. And that's something that is within the realm of the startup to work on.
Great insights. Yeah, I also truly believe that there's so much potential in building niche type of models, smaller models, efficient models that are actually viable for different environments that, you can't actually use GPT-4o. It's either too expensive or actually not applicable to your specific use case, or even, other languages. The stuff that we're doing, like we see all those frontier models essentially failing to adapt to the nuance, the cultural nuance, geopolitical nuance, the actual nuance of the other culture out there. So interesting, you have a vast experience of advising startups. And I think I noticed you have 25 or 35 startups that you've advised and coached to fundraise. What are the key, shifts that you're seeing in the fundraising market right now? Or it's pretty much, delusional in a way, in terms of the amounts of capital that is being poured into AI. What are the shifts that you're seeing?
I used to not look so much at the kind of the macroeconomics and all that. I just, coach founders on how to kind of, put together a compelling story and present that. And that sort of seemed to work, more or less at any time. But lately, and especially reflecting on my own experience of raising capital in most recently in 22, at the very end of the mega peak, and closing, $8 million in 2 weeks. and then just seeing people try to close a quarter of that and it takes 6 months, like 2 months later. I think I'm much more conscious of the state of the market, and so if you're going out for capital now, then the interest rates are heading in the right direction to make that a lot easier. As for anyone who hasn't sort of studied this, as the interest rates go down, even like 1% or 2%, the bond yield goes down. So VC is just a tiny blip of like where the big capital allocators put stuff. But if the interest rate is up, they just go, stuff it, I'll just stick it in treasuries because it's safer. But if the interest rates go down, they go, I might as well push it out to VC. And so a small change in the interest rate will cause a massive change in the capital available for VC. And so I'm expecting, it seems like the Fed seems pretty interested in kind of developing a trajectory that it's hard to know how realistic that is because some of the percentages haven't kept up with that. So like the mortgage rates they've actually gone up instead of down because they're not buying it statistically. They're not believing that the Fed's going to keep heading in this direction. But I'm bullish on next year in terms of that settling down and some more capital coming back into your city.
How about fundraising for AI for good? Do you see any shifts? We're definitely seeing more of the impact VCs and VC funds that have this kind of social impact component being added to their pieces. Is it real? What do you think?
I've seen a lot of different investment firms that have some kind of thesis around the for good part. I've seen many more investment firms that will be happy to share those stories for their brand, but they're focused on the financial fundamentals. And I think that when you're raising capital, you want to have the largest pool of investors possible for you to get the best terms. And there is a trap people can fall into where they will say, look, I'm doing this thing that has this social benefit perspective on it. So therefore, these investors that have that as part of their thesis or part of their, maybe it's even baked into their actual, the way they operate, that's a much smaller pool of investors than the pool of investors who are just saying like, show me how I can make more money. If you're trying to do something that's helpful and you want to have a company that's well capitalized and get that capital on good terms, you really want to make sure you're appealing to the financial motivations. We've had people when we were raising who have a very strong sort of carbon aspect on what they're doing. And they were, certainly, attracted to the business model and what it looked like. And then what kind of, brought them along on top of that was that we can, operate data centers very differently because that technology lets you run them not at 3 nines of uptime, which means no diesel generators, which also means you can, take advantage of renewables more easily and that kind of thing. And so that was an appealing part of the story to them. But ultimately that was not the majority of our round, and it was also, I don't believe, the majority of the reason that investor came with us. So I would have it as a, component of the story. We actually had it as a separate deck for the people who were interested in that, but you really need a financial story at the core of it.
So you never show the second deck to the other investors, right?
Right.
It's your question.
You have a core deck, which is really good, and then you have a lot of ancillary materials that, depending on where people want to go, you can share with them. Some people want to dive into the technology or the market. I have like 50, 100 pages of slides. I only share 10 to start with, and then I see where I want to go from that.
Yeah, makes sense. And I resonate with that. For us, we started this company as a nonprofit. Actually, it's an initiative to basically to diversify AI and run it as the trend to make sure that AI is not English centric. And the way we pitched it was as a nonprofit, alliance for inclusivity of AI. And it does seem like there is a percentage of VCs that are interested in the story, and there's another percentage that has it as like nice to have, maybe an additional slide on the deck somewhere there, but it's not the focus. And they're really focused on fundamentals, which is, not our job to blame because that's their model, and we have to be mindful about that. Interesting. So let's switch the gears towards some of the projects that you've highlighted on the list of the ones that you support. I saw the one from Berkeley, the one with the human alignment training, which is one of the hot topics right now. We're primarily interested in it. From the perspective of the cultural alignment. Because the LLMs that are being built here in Silicon Valley or in China, they are biased. Even though the current sentiment here in Silicon Valley is to build the AGI that is good for everyone and is neutral, that neutrality by itself brings a bias. And some of these models are just not applicable anywhere, where you meet the sovereign, national identity type of a use case. But the research that you've highlighted was really about kind of like comparing models to how humans answer specific surveys, right? And what I find fascinating right now in this area of research is the fact that we're actually shifting towards, I would say, a trend where we're getting so good at aligning these models, but we're not paying enough attention to what we're actually aligning them to, which results in quite, weird outcomes. So one of the research papers that we were just discussing a couple of days ago was the paper from the University of Austin. And the paper is called "Can Machines Think Like Humans?" And very pretentious type of title for the paper. But the whole idea was to test how LLMs perform in dictator games. Do you know what dictator game is? It's basically you have two people, you give money to one person who's a dictator, kind of like give all the money to one person, and then let that person give money to the unfortunate one that doesn't have money. And they tested LLMs on that, and what they found across all of these models out there, that they really don't behave like humans in terms of they are either, give it all or take it all, and they don't model this complexity that human beings are essentially portraying in the real world. So was that, long intro. The question is, what's your thoughts on the current alignment as the whole developing industry of adapting these models?
Well, I think the most important thing is there are more people working in AI, so there can be a broader awareness of what all this stuff is doing. In terms of what I said, like the idea of AI alignment, like you point out, like alignment to what, right? And the idea there is like one model that is somehow aligned to everybody. I mean, you can't find one person that's aligned to everybody on any dimension, right? So why would an AI model do it? Like if you construct a human being according to that responded in some particular way to everything, there's no possible way that human being would make everyone happy all of the time. So why would an AI model be able to do that? And I think we're better off having, a number of models, hopefully a lot larger than just, 5 or 10 frontier models that we have now. And then people can find the models that make sense to them, maybe query, a bunch of models to, get some different perspectives. I don't like the idea there's just like one model to like rule them all, or somehow it gets everything right. Because even if which is impossible, but even if it got it right for a large number of people, then like things change. And we realize we've done things wrong, and there's, cultural, sort of turnover and revolutions for all kinds of reasons. And I don't think we want to get locked into any particular, I don't think we've figured out, moral philosophy, right?
We haven't figured it out as humans, so to figure it out as doing it for machines is even more complex. So speaking about sci-fi, not sure if you read The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson.
No.
So the book talks about this, future where there's this whole neo-Victorian society that is built on traditional values and kind of like the grounding the belief systems in some, civil framework. And this girl gets a hold of the nuanced technology called Primer that is basically built for diversity and kind of like helping human beings adapt to the complexity of the world. That is basically challenging and disrupting the whole kind of like human alignment, the neo-Victorian alignment. And I like that book because it actually portrays a very good outcome for us as a humanity, where we have those tools that allow us to tap into really diverse, behaviors, frameworks to navigate reality, where we can be taught and we can digest the differences of the world. Where right now AI, being the English-centric, being more centered around the Silicon Valley bubble, it kind of like assumes that majority of the world will behave this way, which obviously we're tackling on our side, and I hope more companies will also tackle from the other side. But what do you think about this challenge of diversity versus the utility of the, let's say, hyper-focused societal LLM that is finally, tuned towards Americans, for example? I think we're Australian.
We're the 50.
That's a trick question number 2.
I think the world would be pretty boring if everyone was the same.
Yeah.
That sums it up. I totally agree. Sometimes we meet people and we talk about these challenges of English-centric AI, and they tell me, "So what? Let the English win. That's it." And I'm like, you don't really know what you're talking about, because the language by itself is way more than an efficient tool for communication. It also carries all those cultural values, behaviors, the actual cultural traditions, and all of these things sometimes in one language can't directly translate to another language, where some of the knowledge is hyper-local, some of the knowledge is grounded in the climate nuance, in geography. Sometimes you go into these mountainous regions where there's different cultures, and they have like 10 words to describe some phenomena that happens in the mountains that we simply don't have words for in English or any other Romance language. So it's fascinating that in this AI race, we're kind of like putting the focus on the technological advancement, right, and the speed, which the acceleration kind of like boosts, and we don't have enough conversation about what's left over in that race. So with that, like, what's your thoughts? How do we empower more of the global type of startups, the ones that actually don't have a reach to come to this event, hang out with us, and ask you for compute here on the stage?
Well, we have a website. It's even Sydney, which is in many ways similar to the US. Like, trying to run a startup there, it's very, very challenging. Obviously it's English speaking, perhaps even more English speaking in the US, right? But yeah, I don't know. It's depending on what you're doing, there is like a significant advantage to being here, where I get on a plane like very quickly. I don't. It would be hard to make the claim that you could just sort of do something. You'd probably be dropping at least an order of magnitude by not being in Silicon Valley for a lot of things. In some ways, that distance is going down. Like, YC 2022, COVID, I raised the round from my bedroom, right? They said, "Where are you?" I said, "My feet are in Sydney, but my head's in Silicon Valley."
Okay.
So, yeah. If I could choose, I'd be living on Hamilton Island right now. Beautiful place for the coast of the Strait. But, there's just not a lot of customers there.
Right. When you told me you're living on Hawaii time, I was like, oh, you're living in Hawaii.
No.
Yeah, awesome. That's a good wrap up for our session, I think. Thanks a lot for stimulating discussions and kind of grounding it in the reality of AI for good, fundraising, startups, and then we'll switch to people doing AI for good and some of the exciting projects we'll be highlighting today. And Yuri, my co-founder, the mic is yours.
Okay.
Yeah.